All right, let's get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today for our virtual hangout. We'll be talking about electric transportation with Biktrix and Clearbank. I'm Loven-Holt. I'm the Director of Digital Services at Indiegogo here. And here with me today is Riley Finch from our marketing capital partner, Clearbank, and Roshan Thomas, the CEO and founder of Biktrix. So agenda for the next hour, we're going to kick things off with a quick round of introductions, and then we're going to jump into our discussion with Riley and Roshan. And then last, we'll wrap things up with a Q&A. So if you have any questions that pop up along the way, please just use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and then we'll try and address them at the end. So without further ado, let's meet our guest speakers for today. It's my pleasure to introduce the head of VC partnerships at Clearbank, Riley Finch. Riley, can you give us a little bit of a description about what you do and what Clearbank does?
Absolutely, and thanks for having us on, and always super excited to chat about how we're working together with Indiegogo and talk about different ways that we're helping fund green solutions and solutions that make the world a better place to live. I run venture capital partnerships at Clearbank. What that means is I kind of work at the intersection of equity funding and revenue-based financing and how it pertains to companies and Clearbank alike. Also work on a bunch of different things, so working on things like crowdfunding with Indiegogo. A quick overview of Clearbank, really briefly. We fund companies based on revenue rather than looking at things like a balance sheet, where to go to school, or other different factors that are involved. To date, we've deployed around $2 billion in capital to e-commerce companies, which makes us the largest e-commerce investor in the world, and funded over 4,600 companies in 7 countries and on a bunch of different continents. We have a few different products, so we fund e-commerce marketing spend, inventory, crowdfunding campaigns, as well as SaaS companies and everything in between.
Awesome, and I know there was some big news that came out about Clearbank today, so can you share with us what's going on there?
Yeah, so we'll be try to be pretty up to date and current with it. Today we launched that we're actually rebranding. So what was formerly Clearbank is now Clearco. Same company, and we still do all the same things, but we're just a little bit prettier when it comes to the logo and a little more simple when it comes to the name. So Clearbank is now Clearco. Also announced that we raised a Series C funding round, so we raised $100 million, so you don't have to help continuing to help businesses just like Biktrix and Roshan here.
Awesome. Thanks, Riley. And next, I'm excited to introduce the CEO and founder of Biktrix, Roshan Thomas. Roshan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Biktrix?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I think Indiegogo and Clearbank, thanks for coming along and hosting this. So yeah, let's get started. I started Biktrix about 7 years ago in my house actually, and I started making them electric bikes and started it 7 years ago, one-man show, and then now we've grown to a team of 50 people and ship like thousands of bikes across North America and Europe. So yeah, come quite a ways. We did a crowdfunding campaign last year with Indiegogo, and I think I'm looking forward to the discussion we're going to have.
Awesome, thanks, Roshan. And just for some background, in addition to running a digital ad service at Indiegogo, I've also managed our partnership with Clearbank over this last year. So I've had some opportunity to work with the guys at Clearbank as well as with Roshan and many other entrepreneurs on Indiegogo. All right, so let's dive into our discussion. And Roshan, I'm really excited to hear the story about Biktrix and how you got started. So going back to the beginning, can you tell us a little bit about how Biktrix got started? And actually, even if you want to tell us a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur and how you ended up coming up with the idea for Biktrix.
Yeah, so my dad is an entrepreneur back in India, and I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've seen him hustle every day, and I always appreciated the challenge and the lifestyle in general. So I always had this, and then I came to Canada about 15 years ago to do my undergrad in electrical and computer engineering. So did that, and then I worked in the semiconductor space for a while, in the telecom space for a while, oil industry for a while, and stuff like that. And my latest work that I had before starting Biktrix, I worked in the semiconductor director in the EDA space, that's the electronic design automation space. And as part of that, I got to travel a lot to Europe. So I spent a lot of time in Holland and or in the Netherlands and Germany. And then I used to bike all through my childhood, but not really an avid biker, so cyclist, so to say. But as I used to work on a lot of motorcycles at the time, and one time I was super frustrated with the carburetor, and I thought, oh, I should just make this electric, So I started shopping around for electric parts to convert the motorcycle into an electric motorcycle, and turns out that wasn't too easy or too affordable. It was like super expensive. So I toned down my goals a little bit, and I thought maybe I'll just build an electric bicycle. And I was introduced to these in Europe, and so I built some bikes here, and they were super fun. People wanted to buy them, so I just started, selling them, and that's pretty much how we got started. We did a Kickstarter campaign back in 2014. At the time, we were one of the first mid-drive. That's where you have the motor in the middle of the bike between fat tire electric bike at the time in 2014. Now there's lots of them out there, but we were one of the first ones back then, and that's basically what kickstarted the whole Biktrix company and the e-bike revolution for me, at least.
Very cool. And so going back to those early days, as you were starting off the company, running your first crowdfunding campaign, what were some of the early challenges that you faced creating the company, and how did you bring the product to life in those early days when really you were just kind of putting things together for the first time?
Yeah, so I always believe that if you want to sell something, you have to make the minimum viable product first. So it's like, hey, this is what my ideal bike looks like with so much of all these different features. But the key thing to ask yourself is like, what can I make right now that I can make really fast and get it out there so people can use it and then get feedback from them, and then iterate on it to make it better, right? So I started off Biktrix with about $10,000 worth of inventory, so to say, which was like different bike models and different things, and I wanted to try out to see which one works best for me. And then once I started, selling them, the issue then is that you need to have stock to sell, and you can't get stock if you don't get money from sales, right? So it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem, and that's where crowdfunding came in really handy. Is first we made like a little bit of a marketing video. In this case too, if you guys are out there trying to make a Kickstarter video without spending a lot of money, what I'd done at the time is I actually spoke to a couple of people that do local videography here, and they said like, oh, it's going to cost you like $5,000. So I told them like, hey, $5,000 sounds good, but here's where I'm at. I have no money. So why don't we do this is that you make this video and tell me what your cost is on the video, and I'll cover that. And then if we have a successful campaign, I'll pay you $6,000. And if you don't have a successful campaign, at least you're not making a loss because I've covered your cost. And that worked out great. The guys said, okay, fine, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like $1,300 or something. They're like, yeah, $1,300, that's our cost for renting all this equipment and our time, blah, blah. So if you're successful, we'll do, $6,000. So they were motivated to do that, right? So we put out that product out there, a video out there, started collecting emails and launched the product. And it turns out that we sold about 100 bikes. So now Kickstarter is great because, or Indiegogo crowdfunding in general is great because you've got that $100,000 to get your inventory, and if you've played your cards correctly, hopefully that leaves some profit to not just get bikes enough to deliver, but also get some bikes to for future sales. And that's essentially how I started and how we kept going, because banks won't touch you when you have zero revenues. So yeah, that's basically how we started.
Yeah, well, so it sounds like things were fairly scrappy at the beginning, and capital was probably one of your main challenges in those early days.
Absolutely, yeah, and capital. The thing is that when we're looking at e-bike, you can go get really cheap e-bikes, but I never wanted to do that, because if you get a cheap e-bike, then you sell it to a customer, they're happy today, they're angry tomorrow, and then you got to spend a lot more time supporting them. So I always wanted to have quality, as a number one priority, right? So then our after sales support would be minimal, and to do that, you need to have a lot of inventory. And with banks or any traditional financing, they always go off of what are your revenues, what are your sales, what are your profit margins, and then what is your proven track record, and based on that, okay, we can give you some money, or maybe you can refinance your house. At the time, I couldn't do any of those things, so I was left with no other option other than selling what I don't have and then using that money to fund what I will be having in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I understood. So I'm curious. You also mentioned Kickstarter. Your initial campaign was on Kickstarter, and I want to get to your second campaign, which was on Indiegogo, where you raised over $1.3 million. And so, having had experience on Kickstarter previously, why did you choose to make the transition over to Indiegogo for your second campaign?
Yeah, I think back in 2014, both Indiegogo and Kickstarter were somewhat in the early phases of crowdfunding. Like I think they might have been there for a little bit longer, but it was still a really new thing. And at the time, it looked like Kickstarter was much larger than Indiegogo. I'm not sure about the numbers now; I haven't checked. And then it also seemed like Kickstarter was funding more. This is more of an apparent from visual kind of thing. It seemed like they were funding more innovative products, but that, of course, has changed quite a lot over the years. And now it's like you can go with either Indiegogo or Kickstarter. And the reason we picked Indiegogo this time is because I think the platform itself is a lot more flexible than Kickstarter. I think the fees were fairly comparable, but I think the platform in general is more flexible for Indiegogo. And also using, I think the Indiegogo crowd is more open to higher ticket items. At least from when I see Kickstarter. I think the ticket item that are selling on Kickstarter is a little bit lower, I think, on average than Indiegogo. But I think you have the data for that. I don't. But that's pretty much why we switched to Indiegogo.
Yeah, well, I can say just to as a point of to confirm that you're correct. Our fees are in parity with Kickstarter fees, and so typically this is what we hear from entrepreneurs, that the reason they choose Indiegogo is to support that they have a team to work with, or that the partnerships or the services that we offer above and beyond just our core crowdfunding business are what drew them to Indiegogo. So we have our digital services team, which is essentially an in-house marketing agency that can run ads and do promotions for campaigns, and then we also have our partnerships with partners like Clearbank that can provide marketing capital to our campaigners to amplify their campaigns. So typically, that's what we hear from our entrepreneurs as far as why they chose Indiegogo over Kickstarter. So I guess actually that's kind of a natural segue, Riley, to bring you into this conversation. So can you just give us a little bit of background on what Clearbank or Clearco does? I'm sure there are some people here that aren't really familiar with you guys. And I can tell you the first time that I spoke to Clearbank, it took me a little while to wrap my head around exactly what your business model was. So I think just kind of a baseline understanding would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So Clearco, formerly Clearbank, we've been around since around 2015 with the main goal of supporting founders. That's where the genesis came from, and went through a few different iterations before we landed on sort of the current state and what we look like today. Idea being, look, how can we fund founders' businesses in the most founder-friendly way possible? So what that looked like for us was, all right, if you're if you own a store or you're selling something, whether it's a product or a service, how can we help fund that growth without, one, taking a piece of your company, two, having you on the hook and personally liable for that capital if something potentially goes wrong, and three, if you're not someone who typically would have access to seed venture capital firms or friends and family rounds or angel investors, how can we make it accessible for you regardless of your background or regardless of your socioeconomic status or regardless of where you're from? What that took shape of is Clearbank revenue-based financing, or growth capital, as we like to call it. Essentially what we do is plug into your online business. So plugging in through things like Shopify, PayPal, Stripe, anything that collects payments on the internet. That runs through our system. We use machine learning to underwrite all the businesses. There's no human looking at it. As a derivative of that, we fund around 8 times more female founders than traditional venture capital firms. We fund more people of color, and we fund more visible minorities. All goes through that machine learning underwriting model and spits out an offer. Generally speaking, we provide somewhere between 1 to 1.5x your monthly revenue, depending on how fast your business is growing. And we give you that capital at a flat fee. So rather than providing capital at a compounding monthly interest rate like a bank might, or taking a piece of your company in exchange for money, what we do is we offer the capital at a 6% flat fee. So if you take $100,000 from us, you pay back $106,000. One thing that is super novel and very different from how a regular funding provider or capital provider might work is with Clearbank, instead of paying a lump monthly sum, you pay back as a percentage of your sales. So as you generate revenue on your online store, a percentage of that goes towards paying back Clearbank, and the rest goes to your business. So what does that mean? If something crazy happens, like there's a global pandemic and you sell suitcases on the internet and your sales all of a sudden go to zero, you're not getting billed monthly with a fixed fee that you have to pay and somehow figure out how to make. Your payments go to zero, and there's no penalty for that. Conversely, if your sales speed up a lot, if you sell toilet paper on the internet and something crazy like COVID happens, then you pay back it a little bit faster. Tons of advantages to this for a bunch of different reasons. And then we have a few different products. So we've grown from just that kind of core e-commerce marketing capital product all the way up to funding SaaS companies based on their monthly recurring revenue, funding inventory purchases. So if you're trying to buy a bunch of product to have in your store, or if you're using our marketing capital to drive a ton of people to your store, now you need things to sell. And then lots of interesting stuff in between. So we have a new product called Clearangel, which is for founders at the earliest stage where capital is a piece, but so is advice. So, like if you raised an angel round from a bunch of really smart people, they might help you build that business. We're trying to do the same thing and sort of productize angel investing. That's a little bit on Clearco.
Yeah, awesome. And so I think just to kind of like rephrase that, because I think one of the things that really stuck out to me when I first understood this this business model or this funding model was that this capital was, you were not taking equity, it's non-dilutive, it's paid back by future revenue flow. So for a campaigner and entrepreneur on Indiegogo, they're already raising funds, they have pre-orders, they already are taking in revenue, but essentially they need capital in order to scale their marketing, their digital marketing budgets, for example. This is an opportunity for them to take money from Clearbank and then scale their marketing with a great return on their digital ad spend. They're making that money back very quickly. They can repay Clearbank, and then they can, again, even take additional funds from Clearbank, which is another thing that Clearbank does that I really like, is that essentially once they've paid back that original amount, they can top up. Did I explain that correctly?
Yeah, bang on. And then I think that kind of connects really nicely to how we work with you guys at Indiegogo and what's so awesome about that. Since we're funding companies based on revenue, you need to have a certain amount of revenue before we can actually underwrite. So what does that mean? If you're launching a brand new product, or if you're launching a new company and you need capital, but you don't, maybe have the means, you don't have $10,000 to throw at a video editor or a designer, you can go launch a crowdfunding campaign. Of course, you don't get access to those funds until the campaign closes, which is kind of where our partnerships comes in. Essentially, once you raise $40,000 on Indiegogo, you can unlock up to 25% of that and take that capital up front, and then it's repaid at the end of the campaign. So think of it as essentially pulling forward the capital you're already raising to be able to drive more people to that campaign and have a more successful campaign overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say from my perspective, having worked on this partnership, that it was really a natural partnership. I mean, from something that we hear a lot from, or heard a lot when we surveyed our entrepreneurs in terms of what were their needs, what type of additional services they would be most interested in. Would it be, legal? Would it be web development? Would it be some help with taxes? I mean, access to capital, additional access to capital for marketing was like #1 on the list, and also for manufacturing. So it really made sense very quickly for us once we started talking to you guys and developing this offering.
I mean, I think one thing that would love to double click on too is I'm not sure how many people know this, because I didn't know it when I was kind of first learning about how Indiegogo works and how crowdfunding works. Is people are running ads to drive traffic to their campaign, as far as I've kind of seen, and that's something that's not immediately apparent. which makes this just, you know, an awesome tool for everyone who's running a crowdfunding campaign. And if you're looking at other services, the ability to pull forward that capital and almost guarantee yourself a more successful campaign because you can throw those dollars at it up front is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually this is probably a good time to bring Roshan back into it, because Roshan, I just want to kind of go back to the beginning of your campaign. So before you launched on Indiegogo, sort of how did you prepare for your launching campaign, and were you aware of Clearbank at that point, or did that sort of enter the picture after you launched the campaign?
Yeah, so I have worked with Clearbank in the past. So Clearbank, you know, as Riley correctly explained, I like their model for lending money because it's your repayment is dependent on your revenue. So it brings down the risk of, you know, can I make that payment next month if I don't have any sales? You know, like that that kind of risk goes away. So we've worked with Clearbank in the past for I think a couple of years now, and we really value that partnership. And I was pretty excited to hear about the program that they have. Like Riley mentioned, they have several different programs, and I was excited to hear about the one they had with the crowdfunding, which is like, you know, if you reach a certain amount, then they will put that a bunch of money up front, so you don't have to wait till the campaign is done to get access to that capital. And then as the second part of the question, to prepare for this campaign, you know, even when we ran our first Kickstarter campaign, I knew that there's a lot of work that needs to happen prior to launching the campaign. So if you know, just simply Google how to run a successful Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, you'll see that there's several different articles that list out a bunch of like a checklist almost of things you got to do, like, you know, making your email list, making a list that's large enough of you know, warm audience or audience that's appropriate for your business, making you know, getting your PR lined up so you can get those articles out there, getting reviews done, and all these like bunch of different things that are essentially, it takes a lot more effort, you know, prior to the campaign than during the campaign, and it needs to be done prior to the campaign so you have a successful launch. Now that I know this, I didn't actually. We're good at making bikes and selling them on our website, but we're not the best at crowdfunding. So what we did is we just found whoever is best at it, and I think Indiegogo, on your website, you actually have a list of you know, I don't know what you call them, partners or professionals that help with the campaigns, and we found Rain Factory to be one of those. And so we hired Rain Factory. You know, I spoke to the guys. We almost had like a mutual interview kind of a process where we wanted to see if they're a good fit, and they wanted to see if our product is good, because most of these companies get paid as part of the campaign. So they get a fraction of the campaign as a commission. So it's in their best interest when they're putting in all this effort to make sure that they select the right product, and then they make sure that the product campaign is successful, so they get paid. And that's actually a really good filter, because right off the bat we know that, okay, is this even a project that's worth considering? Because, you know, they've got lots of experience with, you know, I think like hundreds of successful campaigns. So now they can look at your campaign and look at your project and say, hey, you know what, this is a good idea, maybe let's do it. And so we hired Rain Factory. They did all of that work up front, you know, working with us to get all the materials and to learn about our products and things like that. And that's when and then we launched. And that's the reason when I think after we launched it, in the first 5 minutes, we had hit like $200,000 in revenue or something, or in you know, in pledges. The reason for that is because there was a lot of work that took place prior to the campaign, and we had a warm list of people that were ready to buy. They were just so eager to buy, and essentially when we launched, they just jumped on it because they got the best price ever.
Yeah, so you covered a lot there, and I kind of want to just back up and double click on a few things. But I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask about was, you said that you're great at making bikes, you're not great at crowdfunding. What were some of the unique challenges about running a crowdfunding campaign, whether they're marketing or whether they're simply the logistics of managing comments and orders? But what were some of those unique challenges that maybe you didn't anticipate originally that came up as you launched the campaign?
Yeah, I think the thing about launching the campaign is, like, there's a lot of things that you got to do on a daily basis, like setting up your PR goals of what's going to come out when, running your ads, cutting the ads that don't perform, figuring out what are the ads that convert to the people that you want to get sales with, and like a lot of moving parts that needs to be handled daily on a day-to-day basis. We do that on our website too, but it's not as much as we do on our crowdfunding, just because it's quite a bit different, because when people are buying on our website, they know they're getting a product right away, or shipped like in the next couple of weeks, kind of thing. But when they buy it on crowdfunding, they know that they're paying for something now. It's not just the product that they're paying, but they're paying for the company. They're backing the company and the idea. So yeah, that's where the little bit of discrepancy is, and that's why we just wanted to hire people that know what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think what you're referring to is our experts directory on Indiegogo. We have a number of different experts in there, from marketing agencies to our partners like Clearbank. So you can always go there in order to look up resources that you might need for a crowdfunding campaign. So then I want to get to your decision to bring on Clearbank. When did you make the decision that you'd like to take capital from them? How much did you take? What did you use it for? Just give us an idea of, like, really down to the details of how you worked together with them and how that benefited you.
Yeah, so one of the things is, when you're running a crowdfunding campaign, you need to drive your own traffic to Indiegogo. So of course, Indiegogo has a lot of native users that are coming in to Indiegogo every time, a part of their email list and part of the organic traffic that Indiegogo gets. But not all of that organic traffic that comes to Indiegogo are actually perfect audience for your product. So due to that, we have to constantly run ads on Facebook, or retargeting ads, or Google, or wherever, to drive people to Indiegogo, to our product page and to our pitch. As part of that, of course, running ads, it can be really expensive or really cheap, but really cheap doesn't get you, the best results. So usually the more money you have that you can put on ads, the more traffic you can drive and more quality sales you can get. So as you do this, as the campaign is progressing, so you can see that, okay, my campaigns reach 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. But the deal is that you don't get access to that money till the campaign's done. But the key thing that you want to be doing is, when you're gaining momentum, when you're getting like, $400,000, $500,000 is your revenue goal, as your funds raised, you want to be putting more fuel to the fire and run more ads and send more people down to the website, because now there's a whole community that you're building around your product and around your pitch, and you want that energy to rub off of each other, so that you get a bunch more bump in sales. So this is when Clearbank came back to us, and I think they lent us like $400,000 or something pretty big, and that amount actually helped us to fuel that ads a bunch more, so we could actually go and put it into ads and say, okay, now we can drive more traffic. Because when you do this, we're constantly, like, the good thing with hiring a professional company like Rain Factory is that they're constantly monitoring what your ROAS is on an ad. So ROAS stands for return on ad spend. Typically, a lot of marketers come up with like lots of different terminology, click-through rates and this and that and likes and shares and all that. But as a company, for us at Biktrix, we've only focused on return on ad spend, right? Which is essentially, if I spend $10, or to get a $1,000 sale, how many dollars do I need to spend? And Rain Factory understood that, and they were optimizing the ads all the time for getting the best ROAS. And now, once we figured out what that is, so once we figure out, say for example, we're getting like a 5x ROAS or a 10x ROAS. What that means is, for every dollar I spend, I get $10 in sales, or every dollar I spend, I get $5 in sales. Once we know that number, they added this nifty little spreadsheet that showed, oh, you're spending this much, so if you need to get to this $1 million mark, this is how much you got to spend. And now it becomes a little more predictable, and the Clearbank money basically helped us to stick to that plan and put in more money towards ads and drive more traffic, and eventually raise a bunch more money than we would have otherwise.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think we see this a lot in working with other entrepreneurs that are spending a significant amount on ads that often that there's one of two things. There's either a minimum return on ad spend goal. So they say, all right, look, if I can get more than 4x, that's better than my margin. So that means that I'm actually making money on every single sale. So at that point, let's just spend as much money as we possibly can because we're basically printing money at that point. Or they have a specific goal in mind, like a $1 million mark. They want to have a $1 million campaign. And so at that point, they are calculating out the amount of funds that they need to in order to reach that mark. And so I guess what you're saying is for you, it was you had this goal in mind, this $1 million mark. And so that was sort of the impetus to take to scale your marketing budget in order to hit that milestone.
Yeah, for us, the big thing is that because we're in manufacturing of this larger item, our costs actually are staggered in like a table format, right? So as your volumes go up higher, then your costs drop, not a heck of a lot, but it does drop. And because we were giving such a good deal to Indiegogo, buyers or backers, it was super important for us to optimize for that. So that's why we wanted, like 1 million was just a number out there, but generally we just wanted to get as much traffic or sales as possible, so that we can support them and we can go to our factories and bulk make a bunch of products rather than go back and say, okay, I just need like 50 bikes or something, and then nobody's motivated to do anything, So that was the reason behind that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Riley, I can know from my end, from the campaigns we send over to you guys, we see a lot of them signed. I know that you guys have funded a huge number. I believe it's close to $1 million as far as the funds that you've released in Indiegogo campaigns for use on digital ad spend. But I'm wondering if from your end, since you guys are the ones who are ultimately talking to the entrepreneurs and finalizing the funding agreements, what has been the response among Indiegogo campaigners towards Clearbank and towards the offer that you guys are putting together once we send them over to you and once you have a chance to speak with them?
I think, broadly, everyone's super excited. It's a great vehicle to just really expand the capacity of what Clearbank can do already, and make it more accessible to more people and be a little more tailored to their business situation. So a few different examples, if you're, let's say, a company doing, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month in sales on your Shopify site, you're doing well, you're really enjoying that. But you're also launching, a new product on Indiegogo, and you're raising, close to $1 million in Indiegogo. What that does is it just stretches the amount that we can actually advance the company, so they can be a lot more creative with those dollars, and they can spend a lot more of those dollars through their Indiegogo campaign, and we can fund them that way, versus then underwriting just off the regular business revenue. So one of the really interesting things we've seen is it's just opening up the horizons of what's possible and what you can do. And it really just gives you another vehicle to unlock more capital from Clearbank, which is awesome. I think another thing, like we mentioned earlier, people who are super early on, allows us to stretch a little lower. So, really, it's not just something that is useful for people like Roshan, for example, where, you had used Clearbank prior, and then you used it, during your campaign for that reason and to grow that campaign, and then used it, after a little bit on top-ups and when you were running your campaign beyond close. Also helping people on the higher spectrum, and then also helping people on the lower spectrum. So I think people have been really excited, been great feedback on our end, and we're excited to continue to see more awesome companies coming through.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit more about the other offerings that Clearbank has, especially with your move to Clearco. So just to be very clear, right now, with the Indiegogo and Clearbank partnership, we have some specific guidelines. So live campaigns that raise 40K. So any campaign that's raised over 40K can take up to 50% of their funds. So in advance on 50% of their funds. So if you raise 100K, you can take an advance of up to 50K of your funds to be used towards marketing and manufacturing. That's all we currently offer, but I know that we're in discussions with your team to potentially expand our partnership to include Clearangel and to include a funding product potentially for post-campaign when they're more moving into e-commerce. So I think since that's really relevant for entrepreneurs, even if it's not currently specifically included in the Indiegogo partnership, I'd be really interested if you could just detail a little bit more about what that Clearangel product is, and then what products you have for entrepreneurs as they sort of graduate from the crowdfunding phase and move on into the e-commerce phase.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll start with Clearangel just because it's newer and I think it's super, super interesting. Idea really being, if you look at a traditional life cycle of a company that maybe would go the venture capital route, right? They're usually going to start by raising a friends and family or maybe like an angel round. And what does that mean? So you're getting a bunch of people that you know or have worked with to write, 10, 20, $30,000 checks into the company, raise some money to get it off the ground. But there's more than that. You're, building connections with people. They might be introducing you to potential customers, helping you make hires, helping you run the business, maybe brainstorming on ops and how you can work on processes. The money is one part, and it's not super difficult to figure out the capital piece because capital is becoming just so commoditized with all the different options out there. What people were lacking and what we saw a ton, especially with companies on the super, super early stages, okay, well, I'm, got running my online commerce store. I'm doing, $1,000 a month. I want to use Clearbank, but the entry point is $10,000 a month. How do I get from $1,000 to $10,000? Yes, some money would be nice to help do that, but even if I had $1 million, I don't know, what I should put that in. Should I spend it on Facebook or should I spend it on YouTube or should I spend it on Instagram or Pinterest? I have a bunch of money, but I need to hire a marketing agency. What's a good one? What does good look like in a marketing agency? So all of those little kind of qualitative pieces that you would usually see from a venture firm in like a portfolio services capacity is what we're trying to do through Clearbank. So you're getting one, capital, but two, what we're really trying to do is productize, advice as a service, which is super exciting. And what's actually happened is, companies that are later and later stage are actually coming in and using Clearangel because of that and because of the kind of depth and level of support we can provide and try to really become a trusted advisor to your business, which is incredible. And it's super fun to watch and cheer founders on from the sidelines in that capacity. On the other side, on the later stage side, post-campaign, we have a couple different products. So we spoke a little bit about the marketing capital product, which is mainly designed to help you drive more traffic to your website. It's a 6% flat fee on capital, which we kind of covered earlier. What that means is if you take $100,000 from us, you pay back $106,000. There's no personal guarantees. We don't take equity. It's totally non-dilutive. There's no warrants. There's no MAC clause. And there's no personal guarantee. So it's a really safe and easy way to go and get some dry powder to throw on a campaign, do your monthly, weekly, yearly marketing spend budgets and everything in between. Naturally, if you're going to be selling things online and you're going to be driving a ton of traffic to your website, you need to have actual things to sell. So in a very, very, very similar mechanism to the marketing capital, we also have inventory capital. So allowing you to pay inventory POs directly through Clearbank, allowing you to pay suppliers, allowing you to pay vendors. So you can go and actually, spend the capital upfront and then pay it back over time as you make that sale. So a really cool mechanism there. And then for folks on the SaaS side as well, wanting to, understand that you might not be spending money on marketing as much, or you might not be spending on inventory as much. And what might really be important to you is hiring engineers. Maybe it's payroll, maybe it's buying software or SaaS products for your company that's going to run. You've got that super expensive AWS bill. What we're doing there is basically saying, look, if you're making monthly recurring revenue, and month over month you're making $50,000 and $55,000 and $60,000, you've got that capital committed, but you just don't have it right now. So we'll pull that revenue forward so you can turn your MRR essentially into ARR and then pay us back over time. Those are a few products right now. Lots of stuff coming down the pipeline, so definitely stay tuned for new and exciting products that launch in the near future. But specifically, I think marketing, inventory, and angel for this audience is super impressive and super fun to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to see what Indiegogo is able to do next with Clearbank and how we're able to expand this partnership. But I can say just from my experience, seeing the campaigns come through that have been referred over to Clearbank and that have taken funding from them, I know that I would say probably 80 to 90% of the funds have been spent on marketing. So I know at least for Indiegogo campaigners, at least so far, really the big challenge that they face that Clearbank has been so instrumental in solving is funds to scale marketing. That's been absolutely the number one thing that we've seen the funds used for on Indiegogo. We have a few more questions for our guest speakers. I do just want to encourage everyone to use the Q&A. If you have any questions for Riley, for Roshan, general questions about Indiegogo, please drop them in the Q&A so we can get to them at the end. So yeah, thank you. All right, so getting back to you, Roshan, just to kind of put a bow on this, what's next for Biktrix? What do you guys have planned coming down the road here?
Yeah, so it's really exciting times for electric bikes and any outdoor kind of a business, I think, to be in business, because a lot of as people want to do more activities outside, the limelight is on products like e-bikes that enable people to get out and ride more. So for us, yeah, we're super excited. We've had a really steady growth for the past 7 years, and we're continuing that growth trajectory. So we've just been, selling a bunch of bikes, and we have a lot of future products coming along that are super exciting. Like we just launched one of our other new products called the Moto. It's like a moped style bicycle kind of thing on our website, and several new things going on. And we're just excited to be part of this thing during this time. Yeah.
Oh, I think we might have lost Anders for a second there on a bit of a freeze.
Okay, so I can see there's a couple of questions there, so maybe I'll just jump in and answer questions that are directed at me.
I'm back, guys. What did I miss?
He's back. It was a brief, we had a stare down, and we weren't sure because you were so realistic if you were just quiet, and it was a who's gonna shoot first moment, but we're back.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, it seems like I may have had some internet issues over here.
All good.
Yeah. So I guess Riley, going back to you, what are some common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make? You work with entrepreneurs across the spectrum, so I guess just like high level, broadly speaking, in the way that Clearbank interacts with and can help entrepreneurs, what are some of the mistakes that you see them make, and what can they do to avoid them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing and the first thing I'd call out is specifically as it pertains to direct to consumer e-commerce businesses that we work with is not understanding your metrics and not understand what you're optimizing for, what are the KPIs you want, and how are those things tracking, and how are you following those things. So a great example would be, let's say we give a company $100,000 and they go and spend it, but they have no idea where they're spending it or what's going on, and it just goes out into the world, and then they hope they make a bunch of sales. It's really hard to make changes that are going to improve, 1%, 10%, 50% if you don't know what your starting point is. That's a huge one. So, part of that and a little bit of a plug is through Clearco. We've Clear Valuation and Clear Insights, where you can go on and for free plug all your sales accounts in, get a valuation. You can see your CPM, your return on ad spend as a percent of sales, and you can monitor those metrics in a really, really easy way. Another thing that we see a lot is folks not looking for, different options. I think a lot of people get pretty dogmatic and sit on this one track kind of mind. So the example I'll use just specifically is, someone decides that they want to go raise institutional venture capital, and they're on this track, and they've decided they want the TechCrunch article, and they want to do the press release and raise a huge round, and maybe it's not the right choice for them, and maybe they could raise just as much money, not dilute themselves at all, with a crowdfunding campaign or with something like Clearbank. So being open-minded, always kind of looking at what the next best thing is, keeping a finger on the pulse in whatever environment you're in, and then really thoughtfully keeping an eye on how your business is reacting to the changes you're making.
So that's great advice. And Roshan, I want to get to you and ask just about some advice that you would have for entrepreneurs. But since I missed the end of your last answer, your current Biktrix, how many employees do you have now?
We're about 50 people right now. Just a little over 50. Yeah.
And the company was started from now. How old's the company now? 8, 9 years?
It started in 2014, so it's about 7 years. Yeah.
7 years. Amazing. That is awesome. It's amazing the success you've had. So from with that as the context, if you had some advice for entrepreneurs who are in the position you were in 2014, starting a company, what would that be?
Well, I think it's important to pick the right product, and and by the right product, I don't mean right for you product. I mean right in a way that customers want to buy it, right? So cash is king, as they say. So I think if you can, if you're planning to launch a new business, I think it's good to not just pitch the idea to your friends and family, but also see if there's somebody that's willing to pay for it. And if people are willing to pay for it, then there's definitely going to be more people that are going to be willing to pay for it. And nowadays with social media, advertising and things like that, I think it's very easy to check if your ideas are worth pursuing by just making a pitch video, putting it out there, getting a bunch of feedback, and seeing if people are willing to buy it. You can always refund them. If it's a small deposit that you have to put on your idea, you can always refund them, or if you proceed with your idea, then you can do it. The other thing is, just do it on a crowdfunding campaign and put it on Indiegogo. Figure out how we're gonna, if that product is worth pursuing, because it's it's not just a product at that point. It's a company, and you want to see if other people want to support that.
Awesome, great. I think that's great advice. Well, I appreciate you guys.
So it looks like we have some questions coming along here. I'm not sure if you can see all of them, but Anders, so there are some that are pointed at me. Do you want me to just answer them, or?
Yeah, sure thing. I was actually just going to get to the Q&A, but since you can see some of the questions, if you want to go through them, yeah, feel free.
Okay, so one of the questions that I got here, let's see here. There's a perception among entrepreneurs and consumers that e-bikes and EVs is expensive and comes at a cost, despite the positive impact on our planet. How could we work together to debunk this myth? So I guess this question is for all panelists, it says. Well, I'll go first. So, there's a lot of argument out there that, oh yeah, my EV, it uses lithium ion, so inherently it's worse than my fuel burning car. This is actually not, completely correct. Of course, there's non-sustainable way of lithium harvesting and things that are happening as where it's not so green. But getting oil from the ground is never green. Like it's we've done a lot of improvements over the past years because it's such a mature industry, but it's still not the greenest industry. There's a lot of spills that still happen, a lot of tanker issues that happen, derailments that happen, and all of that. So when you consider all of those things, electric cars and vehicles are inherently more greener. And the other big thing is that internal combustion engines are never going to be as efficient as using up a battery power on a vehicle, just because it's such a small form factor. So if I ran like a big industrial generator to generate my electricity burning fuel, that generator is going to be much more efficient than burning it in my car. So I think inherently there are a few of those things that make EVs just positive. The other big thing is imagine this plant that's generating electricity by burning coal, right? The issue with that is that they can't control the amount of energy produced. They can't just like scale it up as needed and scale it down as needed, because they know that they need to keep burning this amount of coal to generate this amount of electricity, and whether they use it or not, they need to keep doing that. Now with sustainable energy sources like solar and stuff, what happens is that all the energy is stored in a battery bank. So you use as much as you need, and the rest goes into storage. Now, the storage part is what's missing in coal and different things like that. So that's why I think that using electric is definitely the way for a greener future. We just need to come up with better ways of harvesting materials like lithium and cobalt and things like that are used on EVs.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, Roshan. And Riley, I have one for you here about Clearco or Clearbank. I'm sorry, I continue to say Clearbank. It's what I've been used to saying for the last year, and it's also what I have in my notes, to be totally honest. But I know we're using Clearco moving forward. So a question for Clearco, in which countries can you currently provide funding? And then a follow-up question about Clearangel. Clearangel, what are the funding conditions?
Got it. Great question. So on the Clearco, where do we provide funding side? So we've always been live in Canada and the US. We've been working in the UK for a while now, so we're in the United Kingdom. We are live as well in the Netherlands, Australia, and I believe as well, there's a few more geographies coming. I think Ireland is pretty soon on the list. So for sure, Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, and the Netherlands.
Good to know.
And then for Clearco, yeah, absolutely. So on the Clearangel side, there's a few different qualifications, and it really does kind of depend business to business. So what I would encourage you to do is head over to, and I gotta look at the website just because we're Clearco now, angel.clearbank.com is still the website there. Or if you go to Clearco, drop down under products, you can just click Clearangel. And you'll see the different things there. I think there's a few more qualitative things on the Clearangel side that you can pick through, but generally speaking, what you'll need is an online business that is generating, I think it's at least $1,000 a month in revenue. And that is all.
Okay, good to know.
Cool.
Oh, was someone going to jump in there? Roshan, going back to you, question about your crowdfunding campaign, about the channels you use, because we were talking about media spend. Was there a specific channel that worked the best for you, or actually just delivered the highest ROAS? Was it Facebook, Google, YouTube, video ads? What was the channel that worked best for you during your crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah. So one of the advantages of hiring a company like Rain Factory that knows what they're doing is they have a lot of these customers. What they do is usually they take a budget and then they split it among all of the channels, right? So they say, okay, let's put some of the money into Google search ads, and some of them into Facebook, and some of them within Facebook they would do like let's split it up into cold traffic, warm traffic, retargeting, and all these different categories. And within the cold traffic, they would say, oh, let's try all of these different interests, or these different people, or these different geographies, or whatever it is, and then they also run like some YouTube ads of our same video that we have on the Indiegogo. They run it as a YouTube ad and see how that performs within different keywords, and then once they start running some experiments, then they figure out, okay, it costs us, say for example, $20 of ads on Facebook to get some person to come to our website and make a purchase, while it costs like $30 on YouTube to do the same thing, and it costs maybe $10 on Google, but except not many people are searching for the exact same keyword that we want. So then they would actually plug all of these numbers into an Excel sheet to figure out what is offering the best return on investment. And sometimes they come back to me and say, hey, we've got this result, but the data is actually quite preliminary because it's we've only run this for like a couple of days. So maybe we should make a decision, or maybe we should just run it a little bit longer and then make a decision. So basically the answer is to just run a bunch of tests and figure out what are the results out of those, and then narrow down or double down on the things that are working really well. And then that's basically how we proceeded with picking our individual channels for ads and stuff.
Yeah, I think the test and iterate strategy is really important to underscore there. And as someone who has, I have my own experience, I should say, running our internal digital marketing agency. We do see that Facebook is often one of the biggest drivers, but it's depending on the audiences that you're targeting, or the specific behaviors that you're targeting, that can vary a lot. So it is really important to test a number of different strategies when you're picking out your digital marketing mix. One other question, and I'm not sure if you can share this information, but just as a follow-up to this, someone asked, what was your total marketing budget for your recent Indiegogo campaign? So I'm not sure if you can share that information, but
I think starting off Yeah, starting off the campaign, I had allocated about $20,000 to $25,000 towards running ads and paying Wing Factory and whatever else. So clearly that amount wasn't large enough. But given that the results were coming in, like we were taking deposits, or we knew that these customers were super hot, they were definitely going to buy. I was able to stretch that budget up to about $30,000 or something, and that's what got us started with that initial momentum. And then as we started raising a bunch of money, and then Clearbank gave us some more money, we were able to use some of that towards the ads. And I can't remember exactly how much we used, but I think roughly about 5 to 10% of your total raise is a pretty reasonable amount to think as what you'll be spending to drive traffic.
Yeah, I think 5 to 10% is fantastic. I think it means that you have a product that's getting a lot of traction. I've just heard anecdotally that it can be upwards of 10%, 10 to 20%. So I think 5 to 10% as a guideline is very successful.
I'm a pretty stingy guy. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Riley, I'm getting a number of questions just about geographic locations. So you just went through the areas where Clearbank currently operates. Are there plans to expand that? And then in addition to that, if an entrepreneur is, say, physically based in one area, but has a business entity and bank account in, say, the United States, does that mean that they could receive funding from Clearbank, even if they're not in an area that Clearco currently operates?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we kind of think about business location and eligibility as where your LLC is. And what you'll need is a business bank account and a registered incorporated company in that place. As far as Clearangel goes, we're not in New Zealand yet, but we're expanding super quickly. And one of the ways we pick the next place we should launch is by how many people have indicated that they want us to come there. So head over to angel.clearbank.com and sign up, and it'll put you on the wait list. And then as soon as we are launched in New Zealand, you'll be the first one to know. And there's usually a wait list, so it's good to be able to get in ahead of that. I think we had a bunch of people on the wait list for the UK as well as Australia. So the next one is sure to have one as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any additional questions or additional questions that you guys saw, Roshan or Riley, that you wanted to shout out or give an answer to in the last minute or two we have here.
Yeah, I see one that's super interesting that says, hey, I want to start a business converting classic cars to electric. I'm in the concept stage. What are my first steps? Okay, just copy. Copy. So figure out who else has done this before, and then go figure out what are they doing that you can do better, maybe, and then just go copy them. I think if you're looking at converting classic cars to electric, EV West is the name that always comes up. I'm a big fan of their work, but I know that they can't possibly convert all of the cars in the world to electric. So I'm sure there's a market space for that. So I would, if I were you and I was contemplating starting a business converting electric cars to electric, or converting classic cars to electric, I would go look at what EVUS does and figure out if I can do something better than them.
That's great advice. I have seen some of those classic converts. They are very, very cool. Very, very cool. That is a great business model. All right, I think we're just about at time now. So if you still have any questions about Clearbank or about Indiegogo, you can check out their page on the Indiegogo's experts directory. You can also go to clear.co/Indiegogo to get in touch with them if you're interested in funding for your campaign. And we'll also be sending out the link and contact information in a follow-up email after the event, so you'll have that in your inbox. So just as a final point, I'd like to thank our guest speakers. Thank you, Roshan and Riley. I appreciate you guys being here. Roshan, I think you've inspired and helped a lot of people with your story and advice today. And Riley, I'm really excited to, like I said, see where we take this partnership with Clearco as you guys move forward with the expansion of your services, and we try and find more entrepreneurs on Indiegogo that are eligible and interested in funding. So thanks to everyone who attended as well, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye.
Cheers. Thanks for organizing this.
Thanks, Anders.
See you guys.
All right, bye-bye.